morning. We appreciate you being here for another sermon from the Gardiner Lane Church of Christ. We appreciate you tuning in today, this being May the 10th, 2020. This is Mother's Day today, and certainly we are thankful for all the mothers around the world and the mothers from our congregation as well. And we hope we'll be together very soon once again. On April the 15th, 2020, Governor Andrew Cuomo had a news conference. And in the news conference, he talked about the fact of bringing the coronavirus down. And as he stated that, he talked about the fact that God did not do that. Faith did not do that. Destiny did not do that. It was just a lot of pain and hard work. The governor wasn't giving God the credit or thanking God, but just thanking other people for what they had done. There's a commercial out right now about how science is battling the coronavirus. And it says at the very end of the commercial, and science will win. It's very interesting to me when you talk about this virus and you talk about what's really worked. That's really social distancing and quarantine and isolation. But you know, God told us that 3,500 years ago with Israel. We think this is something new. We're very thankful for people. We're very thankful for our first responders. We're very thankful for our medical people. We're very thankful for our grocers who are staying open right now, working very hard, and the bankers and other places as well that are being open. But the question is, how does God work into all this? In Psalm chapter 46 and in verse 1 it says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. We see that God is all-seeing, all-powerful, and ever-present. God is omniscient. Job says in chapter 34 and in verse 21, for his eyes are upon the ways of a man, and he sees all his steps. Not only that, but we see that God is omnipotent. Omnipotent means all-powerful. The Hebrew word is El Shaddai, meaning almighty. In Jeremiah chapter 32, and in verse 17, it says, behold, you have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and by your outstretched arm. Nothing is too difficult for you. Nothing's too difficult for God. Not only that, we see that he's omniscient, he is omnipotent, and he is omnipresent. We see that he is, as we said a few moments ago, that he is ever-present help. But in Psalm chapter 139 and verse 7 through 10, it says, where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you're there. If I make my bed in Sheol, behold, you're there. If I take my wings to the dawn, if I dwell in the remotest parts of the sea, even if you lay down your hand will lead me, and your right hand will lay hold of me. We understand that there's no need for us to be lonely. Christians shouldn't be lonely. God said, I'll never leave you, and I'll never forsake you. I know that a lot of people are separated from loved ones right now. And this coronavirus can separate you for a period of time, but nothing, ladies and gentlemen, can separate you from the love of God. He says as well that God is above and beside us. He fills our hearts with food and gladness. In Acts chapter 14 and in verse 17, as Paul and Silas are in Lystra, he said, and yet he did not leave himself without witness, in that he did good and gave you rains from heaven and fruitful seasons, satisfying your hearts with food and gladness. One of the things I'm enjoying right now is getting to eat my wife's cooking. She's a very good cook. Most of the time when we're working, we're just eating out most of the time. But right now I'm enjoying that. My taste buds are enjoying that. They're sending a message to my brain saying, this is really good food. And that's because of the way that God has made us. Not only that, But we see that he heals our diseases in Psalm chapter 103 and in verses 2 through 5. Psalm 103 and verses 2 through 5, it says, O my soul, forget none of his benefits, who pardons your iniquities, who heals your diseases. He forgives us of our sin, and at the same time he heals our diseases. Oh, there's medicine that you might take right now that might help you get well from the flu or from this virus or anything else. And you might think, well, I really appreciate that medicine. Well, that medicine is from God, because God made all those materials that made that medicine. You might say, well, that medicine came from Eli Lilly. Well, God made Eli Lilly. And you might say, well, God, certainly those scientists, they made those medicines, and they're really bright, intelligent people. And that's true, they are bright and intelligent. But understand, God made those scientists. God is above us and beside us, not only with our hearts, healing our diseases, but every good gift comes from him. This is a very familiar passage in James chapter 1 and in verse 17. Every good thing given and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shifting shadow. Every good gift comes from God. Whether you're in the hospital, God is there, he's the healer. Whether you're at the graveyard, God is a comforter, God is a conqueror. We see that God works in concert with his creation. God works in and through us. We see in Isaiah chapter 26 and in verse 17. He says there, or in verse 12, it says, and you will establish peace for us, since you have also performed for us all your works. You know, the Revised Standard says you have accomplished all we have done. Oh, people, they might do things, but God has accomplished that work within us. Not only that, but human ingenuity comes from God. Job chapter 35 and verse 10 and 11, it says, no one says, where is God my maker, who gives songs in the night, who teaches us more than the beasts of the earth, and makes us wiser than the birds of the heavens? You might be putting together a bicycle. I was watching my son a while back put together a bicycle. And you have maybe the tires, you have the frame, you have the seat, you have other parts of the bicycle. And that's a beauty to watching somebody put those things together, but understand, those things are truly made by God. And we ought to thank God for everything that we have. It probably ought to be put on the directions at the very beginning, before you start anything, that this was made by God, because of God. All things, in him all things consist. All things were made through Christ. He says in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being by him, and apart from him, nothing came into being that has come into being. God used the Word to speak everything into existence. In Hebrews chapter 1 and in verse 3, it says, he upholds all things by his power, who being in the brightness of his glory and the express image of his person, and upholding all things by the word of his power. And not only that, but in Colossians and in chapter 1 and verse 16 and 17, he says there as well, for by him were all things created, that in the heaven and the earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things are created by him and for him. And in verse 17 it says, and he is before all things, and by him all things consist. Maybe you've heard this before. In 1844, Samuel Morse, who built the telegraph, was in Congress. And he was going to send a message to his friend at that time, Alfred Vail, who was at a railroad station in Baltimore, Maryland. And this was the message that he sent. What hath God wrought. He understood he wasn't the one. He wasn't the one that did that. It says, you're worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power. For you created all things, and by your will they exist, and they were created. Everything was created by God. We understand that when electricity was first seen about, that God knew about electricity from the very beginning. Radio waves, God knew about it at the very beginning. Smartphones, God knew about it at the very beginning. What you're able to do with your house right now, to make your house high-tech, God knew about that in the very beginning. He says, be still and know that I am God. And I will be called among the nations, and I'll be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us, and the God of Jacob is our refuge. Until next week, we ask that God continue to bless you. Thank you for tuning in today.